Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Peaceful Solution Teacher Certification Training Course class. Glad to see everyone here, and we welcome everyone that's tuning in everywhere around the world. Please be seated if you're standing up. And if you're tuning in online, remember you can go to the Facebook page, Peaceful Solution, official Peaceful Solution Facebook page, and you can go to the top of the page and find the character manual up there. This is the manual that we're going over, so you can download it for free of charge, and you can follow along with us. And we're going to be picking up where the last teacher, Katan, left off on page, let's see, he covered You've Only Just Begun on page 148. Remember, we're covering chapter 7, and we're going over All We've Learned. That's the title of the chapter 7, All That I Have Learned. And Katan covered, and I thought he did an excellent job covering You've Only Just Begun and showing us, that we've only just begun to live and experience life. And we're just beginning now to gain the insight and the wisdom that we need to become a productive member of society. And the only way we can do that is through, this moral character education, coupled with the academic education, the math, reading, science, etc. We also have to have this moral character education, because without it, no education is going to be complete. The character education is the most important education a person can get or can receive. It's also the greatest gift any parent could give their child, or any teacher could give their students, is this gift in learning, how to make right decisions, how to avoid the pitfalls that are out there, the negative character or the negative influences that are out there, how to avoid these things, and how to say no and always make right choices. And Katan covered this in the last class about this, You've Only Just Begun. And he said in the middle of the page 148, it says, as with all journeys, preparation's the key. Have you ever been on a trip and encountered car trouble, an expected detour, or bad weather? Where I'm from in Alaska, they have warning signs on certain roads, because in Alaska, there's only like one main highway. In fact, it's called Highway 1. And it's, all the other roads are basically roads to nowhere. I mean, there's things there, but they have an end, it's kind of like the bridge to nowhere you've heard about. But they're very treacherous roads, especially in the wintertime, and they have warning signs, posted that, look, there's no gas station, it's seasonal. The gas stations are only open during the winter or during the summer months, spring and summer. But in wintertime, you're not going to find an open gas station. And they warn you, if you're going somewhere up this road, you better make sure, first of all, that there's no gas station. Second of all, you better be bringing heavy blankets, food, matches, or some way to light a fire, etc. You better have some things, available in case you get stuck, because there's nobody going to come up there. There's no one going to go up there and pull you out, because there's no one on those roads. So preparation is key. And I know there's been people, I've read about them when I was a younger person, that didn't heed the warning, and, they ended up whole families freezing to death. Okay, because, because they didn't have what they needed for that journey. And it's, it could be that serious, so you have to really take these things seriously. You got to be prepared. Preparation is the key. And it says, did you get lost and have to ask for directions? Of course, you're talking to junior high students here. They're not driving cars yet, okay? But they're probably, you're asking them, did you get lost, and did your parents have to ask for directions? Usually the child in the back seat will tell you, hey, why don't you pull over and ask for directions? But, the parents are always usually the man, like Katan said. They'll drive around for hours without asking for directions. Oh, I'll find it. While the wife's telling them, hey, can you just, pull over here and ask somebody, where we're going? By the way, that's called pride. When you don't want to ask, it's really simple to ask. It could save us a lot of trouble, if we would just do it. So it says, if you had a flat tire, were the tools available to change it? And were you prepared? I remember driving up from Laredo, Texas, up here to Abilene, Texas, and I got a flat tire. And, wouldn't you know, no lug wrench. I had a tire, but there was no lug wrench in the back. So I had to call a friend up here. And Junction, Texas is 2.5 miles or 2.5 hours south of here, off of Interstate 10. And he didn't know what size my lug wrench nuts were. So it was amazing what him and a couple friends brought with them, driving 2.5 hours. They brought a whole, it was like a truck and trailer bed full of equipment just to change my tire. Well, why did they have to bring all that stuff? Because they didn't know what kind of tire I had. And they came prepared because they weren't going to drive for 2.5 hours to get there and find out they didn't have the right lug wrench and all those things. Okay? So they came with a whole lot of different things and kind of put me to shame and made me think, you know what, I need to be more prepared, because first of all, they had to drive 2.5 hours south, and then they had to drive 2.5 hours back. That's like 5 hours just in road time, not to mention the gasoline, and all the other things, their time, right? There's 3 men that were with them. So I put a lot of people to a lot of trouble and a lot of inconvenience because of my lack of foresight, or my lack of making sure on my 6.5 hour journey that I had all the things that I was going to need. I saw the tire. I just didn't think, to look for the lug wrench, right? But we need to make sure we have those things. We need to check, make sure we're prepared. That's the key, as it says here. So it says the time span between childhood and adulthood can be compared to a journey. And just like a road trip, things might not go exactly as you plan. Keep in mind, there will be detours or bad weather, those unexpected events that will really test your resolve to maintain your positive character. Another word for that, or another term, would be curveballs and pitfalls. We learned about that on page 85, and I know Catan went over that again in the last class. And also remember, another word for that could be called a setback, right? Remember patience? You're going to need patience and remaining calm when things don't go as planned, or, when you have these setbacks. We got to try to remain as patient as possible. And hopefully, like the men that came to help me that day, they were very patient with me. They didn't get upset with me or anything, but I know they were probably thinking in their mind, man, this guy, he needs to learn a little bit more about that peaceful solution he's teaching. He didn't have that lug wrench in the back. So, we sometimes we have to learn the hard way. In that case, I knew, actually, I do have one excuse. I hadn't taught the responsibility unit yet. So, no, just kidding. I should have looked, okay? I should have looked. So it says, just as if you were on a road trip, being prepared means you can successfully complete your journey, even if there are obstacles that you didn't expect. Okay, so that covers that. Now let's go over to get prepared for tonight's lesson here. Let's go to LP7D, and we're going to have to go over step 4. And it says, continue with the analogy of life being a journey. An analogy is like where you just compare something with something else, okay? And you describe it, and you prepare it, and you describe it and compare it with something else that's similar. It says, ask students this question. If you were told that you had to pack everything you would need for the rest of your lives into a suitcase, what would you pack? Now that seems kind of like a silly question, right? But, I'm going to prove to you tonight that we are prepared to take a whole lot of things in our suitcase. If you're a Peaceful Solutions student, I have a suitcase for you. Okay, I have a real suitcase that you can pack all your friends in and take all the things that you're going to need on this journey. There is actually a suitcase. I'm going to show you here in a little bit. And then it says, allow as many answers as time permits and have the students turn to page 149 in their handbook and read the section entitled, Let's Take a Trip. Emphasize that having a positive moral character is the first step in preparing themselves for their journey to adulthood. Now, I want you to imagine something. Imagine going through, and it's easy for a lot of us to imagine because a lot of us, now I've got a lot of young people here, but you young people especially, try to imagine going through your whole life and then graduating high school and, becoming an adult and not having been taught what you're learning here in the Peaceful Solution. Just try to imagine that, okay? Because many of us did go through our lives without being taught these basic moral principles right here. Sure, our parents, they did the best they could with what they knew about honesty, teaching us responsibility, giving us chores to do, so that when we got a home of our own, the cockroaches and the rats didn't have to clean up our messes, right? That's why they taught us to do chores, because if we don't do them ourselves, there's creatures that will do them for us, right? And then we'll complain that we have those creatures all over our house that like to clean houses, right? Well, our parents did the best they could with what they knew, and our teachers in school, they tried to instill some of these things, but they didn't have a book. They didn't have a curriculum like we have here. So I want you to imagine becoming an adult and not having these basic foundational principles that are taught in the Peaceful Solution and try to get through life. That's very unprepared, because as we note in the Peaceful Solution, the author says, no education is complete without this. Okay? And, there's a lot of smart people out there, There's a lot of the very educated people out there in the schools and in the colleges, that are very quite brilliant when it comes to, science and other academics. But some people are so brilliant that they're out there splitting atoms, they're splicing genes, mouse genes and other genes, and sticking them into, splicing, what do they call them? Mice genes, and mixing them into the mustard greens, or taking the genes of a jellyfish and making a potato glow, those glowing jellyfish, and they can put those genes into a potato and make that potato have the same characteristics as that glowing jellyfish. Well, that seems to be really cool or something, but it's not really smart. As we're going to learn later on in the program, we get into the self-control unit. We talk about genetically modified foods and how things have been, genetically altered and basically ruined because smart men and smart women, that didn't have the moral foundation that you're getting now, made certain decisions, like the nuclear bomb. Think about the nuclear bomb. In fairness to the thousands of people that worked on that nuclear bomb, did you know most of them didn't even know what they were working for? Yeah, they were making nuts and bolts, and they were making different parts in different factories and in different locations throughout the world. Throughout the United States, New Mexico, Hanford, Washington, Tennessee. But most of those people did not know what they were working on. They had no clue that they were going to build a bomb. This is back in early 1940s. 42, I think, is when the Manhattan Project started. They had no clue that they were building a weapon that could destroy a city just with one, in the flash of a blink of an eye. It took thousands of people to do that. And a lot of them didn't know what they were into, as I said, but they actually did it. They actually completed it in about 3 years. Only took them about 3 years to complete. Massive, massive effort by the U.S. government and all these people. And, you know, those bombs were then dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, as we know now, when I was growing up in school, I read about those things. I read about the Hiroshima bombing on August 6, 1945, and then the Nagasaki bombing afterwards, just 3 days later. And I thought that was a great thing America did, because, you know, wow, America, you know, we got the first bomb. We beat the Nazis. You know, it was a race against the Nazis to get the bomb, and we won. You know, nobody ever talked about, you know, the hundreds of thousands of people that died in just a flash, or nobody talked about all the people that suffered from radiation sickness and what it did to the environment. Nobody talked about that. I didn't learn that until I started taking the peaceful solution and started learning about these things. So, yes, we have a lot of smart people, okay? But remember, you've got to couple that academic education with the peaceful solution, so you'll never work on projects that will bring harm to somebody else. Okay? You'll only work on projects that build cities, not destroy them. You'll only work on projects to help people, to bring peace to nations, not war among nations or weapons of war to use to destroy other nations. You would never do that, because you know a moral person never brings harm to anybody, right? That's what it says. If we're moral, we never want to bring harm to anyone, including ourselves, okay? So it's back to page, let's look at page 149, okay? It says, let's take a trip. It says, if life was one long road trip, what would you take, and who would you take with you? Imagine that you have to pack a suitcase with everything you'll need for the rest of your life. What are some of the physical things you would need? Well, surely you're going to need food, water, clothes, shoes, and money. Well, we could limit the money part by just using a plastic debit card, right? So we wouldn't have to pack a bunch of cash. So we could save a little room in our suitcase there. Clothes, food, all water, man, we're going to need a big suitcase, aren't we? It says, and our friends too, you know, you're going to need a big suitcase to take your friends, because it says, but those are just the physical things. In addition, you're going to need to provide for your emotional needs, because everybody needs to know they're loved, cared for, and accepted. Therefore, you'll also need to pack your family, friends, and values in this suitcase. You'll probably have to put some breather holes in it too, once you zip it. If you're thinking that there's no way you can possibly fit all this into a suitcase, well, you haven't seen the suitcase I saw. The people that made this suitcase probably made it special for Peaceful Solution. I'm going to show you a picture of it. You probably thought I was joking. Let's see. I don't know how to, I'm not quite sure I know how to zoom in on this. I'll try to. Okay. Y'all see that okay? That's a pretty big suitcase, isn't it? I think I could get 10 of my friends in those front pouches. I could probably get all my clothes in there. I don't have a lot of clothes. I think they heard about this class. You know, they probably took this class and they probably thought, you know what? We need to make a suitcase big enough for these people in the Peaceful Solution to put all their friends in. And their food and everything else they're going to need for that journey called life. By the way, that comes in many different colors. You don't just have to pick the orange. Okay, so, all right, so if you're thinking there's no way you can possibly fit all this into a suitcase, guess what? You're not finished yet. What else will you need to help you on your journey of life? Believe it or not, the most important thing you can pack for your journey is a positive moral character. Thankfully, where's that going to fit? Where can you take your positive moral? You don't have to put it in the suitcase, right? Where's it at? Where's it going to be? Right? Here and here. Your heart and mind, right? So that's something you won't need a lot of room for. You already have storage space inside of you. In fact, you're downloading it right now as you're listening to this class. So as you will see later on in this chapter, without a positive moral character, you can make choices that could cost you everything you value as well as bring harm to others. You know, I think I probably told you before that when I ask people what they value, you know, and they tell me, well, I value my car, I value my children, I value my life, health, etc. You know, they'll almost always tell you they value, their children or other things that they own, their house, etc. But by the time they finish the course, they do realize that really the most important thing that you can value is a positive moral character, because without a positive moral character, you could lose everything that you value. I'll give you, for instance, I read about a couple who lost their house. They lost their house because they wouldn't get off. They wouldn't get up from their couch and stop playing video games. They got addicted to video games. They became very irresponsible and very lazy, and they lost everything they owned because they didn't want to stop playing games. This is adults. This is not children. These are adults. Or what about, if you make one dishonest choice and you end up going to prison and you lose your car that you value, or you lose your house, or, if you have children, who's going to take care of them now? So having a positive moral character is really the most important thing any of us can possess. Okay? But you really won't realize that. Remember what I said, if you're not taught about moral character as a young person, is that going to even cross your mind when you get older? No. You're not even going to know what the word moral means. Okay? Just try asking somebody one day, what does moral mean? And usually before they've learned the peaceful solution, they really can't tell you. Okay? Just like we couldn't tell anyone before we learned ourselves. So without positive moral character, you can make choices that could cost you everything you value as well as bring harm to others. Choices that can seem harmless at the time can turn out to alter your life, change the outcome of your future, and compromise your potential. So the first thing you must put into your suitcase for your journey are your positive moral character traits. But again, I said you don't have to put that in the suitcase because you're not going in the suitcase. I think what your challenge is going to be is finding a car big enough to take that suitcase, right? Some kind of vehicle that's big enough to carry that suitcase we just saw. But you've got to have that positive character on this journey. That's the most important thing. Because as Catan pointed out last class, if you're not a responsible person, like I had my incident where I wasn't being responsible, you might not bring everything on that journey because you didn't think ahead you weren't prepared about what you're going to need. So when things go wrong and you break down, you're going to be like, oh man, I forgot this, or I didn't bring that. And it's going to be very difficult, not just for you, but for other people, because your decisions don't only affect yourself. Remember, my decision not to bring that lug wrench or not to have the check for the lug wrench and make sure I had one affected many people. I inconvenienced a whole lot of people in that one incident. Okay? So it affects others too, our choices. And positive moral character traits. Page 14 and 15. Let's just look at them real quick. Go back to page 14. We're not going to read them. We're not going to read them all, but I do want to refresh our mind, on what they are. Positive moral character. It's been a while since we went over that chapter. But let's look at page, what did I just tell you? Yeah, 15. Okay, hold on just a second. Somehow my book got okay. So on page 14, the positive side of character, the positive character traits we're going to need to take as educated. Making sure we get all the facts and making sure they're correct before we make decisions. We're also going to need to take some respect. And that means to value others as important as ourselves and to allow that to show through our actions and attitudes. We're also going to need some patience. which is demonstrating that self-control and remaining calm through those setbacks, when things don't go quite as we plan. We're going to need some honesty and trustworthiness. We're going to need to be humble. We're going to need to be thankful. And we're going to need to be forgiving, steadfast, and persistent, which means we're determined not to give up or change what we've set out to accomplish. And then, if you look over to page 17, it shows we're going to need a little responsibility. Responsible people, remember, they complete tasks that they're given to the best of their ability in a timely manner without complaining. They do the best job that they can. They also responsible for their actions by being accountable for the things that they do. That's all part of being responsible. So those are just some of the positive character traits that we're going to need on this journey that we take. I'm sure you can think of others. There's 23 positive character traits in the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program. In the character unit, you don't see every one of them. In the high school unit, you'll see more of them as you progress through the Peaceful Solution. But it says, let's see. So it says, carefully consider the following character traits. This is a little exercise you can do. It says, circle only the character traits that you'll want to take with you on your journey. So let's look at this suitcase here with these character traits, and let's figure out which ones we want to take. So, patient. Yeah, we want to take patient. Remember, we just went over the positive list there. How about selfish? You want to take that with us? No, we want to leave that. How about steadfast? Yeah, I just read that. How about disrespectful? Do we want to pack that? Oh, no. We can leave that too. How about dishonest? No. Deceitful? Not being honest and being a tricky person. Lying. How about greedy? Nope. How about modest? Modest. Okay. Compassionate. Do we want to take that? Yes, that's a positive trait. Merciful? Okay. Being kind? How about inconsiderate? No. Decisive, able to make up your mind. Untruthful? Dedicated? Indecisive? You can't make up your mind? Wishy-washy? Nope, don't want to take that. How about rude? No, we can leave that. Caring? Untrustworthy? Aggressive? Yes? No? Assertive? Remember being assertive. Remember what we talked about that. That means, standing up for what's right, standing up for your rights and other people's right in a kind way, not being aggressive, not being mean or anything. Optimistic. How about that? Want to take that? Considerate? How about envious? No, don't want to take that. Adventurous? Well, that's not even a positive. That's not even a character trait, is it? Adventurous? I think that's a what you call a personality trait. Some of these in here, I think they're in there to kind of trick us a little bit. Some of these are personality traits, I noticed. How about irresponsible? No. Hateful? Responsible? Honest? There's aggressive again. They're trying to make us pack that thing. No? Don't want to take that? How about thankful? Okay. So we got about half that suitcase. You see it was full of stuff here, but now we narrowed it down to about half of those character traits that we're going to take with us. Okay, so let's turn over now to page 150. But first, let's go back to LP7D so we can look at step number 5. It says, Explain to students that in addition to their positive moral character, learning to choose their friends wisely is another important aspect of growing up. And we're going to get deeper into that in the next book in the acceptance unit. It says, have students turn to page 150 in their handbooks and read the section entitled Friends Along the Way. In order to complete the exercise on choosing friends, guide class feedback by asking students the following questions. It says, which 3 friends did they choose and why? How will their choice help them to maintain a positive character? So those are going to be the questions. Okay, so let's go back to page 150. Friends along the way. And it says, along with your moral character, the next most important things you can take on your journey are friends who will support you and encourage you to maintain your positive moral character. And right there, I want you to underline that because that gives a definition of what a true friend is. Let's underline, who will support you and encourage you to maintain your positive moral character. Remember, a friend, again, all I can do is compare what I'm reading here to the life experience that I had, where I had friends in high school. And, sometimes we did something positive. I can't think of too many times. But I guarantee we were not encouraging each other to make right decisions most of the time. In fact, most of the time we were encouraging each other to skip school, smoke marijuana, do drugs, get drunk, drive when we're high or drunk. We weren't encouraging each other to make right decisions, okay? And so I really didn't have any friends. In fact, I thought I had a friend. I thought I had one friend. I would have considered him probably my best friend. But this is a true story. I think I might have told you. 3 days before high school, we were just getting ready to graduate high school in 1981, Wasilla High School in Alaska. And I was in my friend's room, my best friend's room. And we were talking, and he left the room to go do something, and I saw some money laying on his dresser drawer, or dresser, top of his dresser. And there's probably $5. There's probably $10. There's probably a couple fives, and I thought, let's just take a $5 bill. He probably won't miss it. You know what? He came back in his room and he saw that $5 was missing, and he said, "Hey, did you take my $5?" No. I couldn't tell him it flew away, so of course I admitted to him, yeah, I took your $5. He goes, "Man, I thought you were my friend." And you know what? I never heard from him again. Okay, that's and I think about it now, and I know it's because nothing that we ever really did was anything respectful to begin with, and when you first make a friend, of course, you treat somebody, well because you want to be their friend, or you want to be their acquaintance, or whatever you want to call it. But after a while, you start doing things, that are disrespectful. And once you start doing that, if you don't stop the disrespect, what do you think is going to occur to that relationship eventually? It's going to fail. Eventually, it's going to disappear. It's going to dissolve, and you're going to go your way, and they're going to go their way. In any relationship, unless the disrespect stops, the disrespectful behavior, which, we were doing a lot of disrespectful behavior, but that was the last straw. Sure, we stole things together, but when you steal from one another, that becomes a problem. That's the way we looked at it. That's how mixed up we were. Okay? But nonetheless, I never heard from him again after that. And we were friends all through, quote unquote, friends all through high school. But we weren't really friends. Again, notice what it says right here. Who will support you and encourage you to maintain your positive character. Does that mean support you mean they send you a welfare check every month, your friend? No, it's not talking about giving you money or something like that. It's talking about supporting your right decisions that you make, supporting you when you have positive goals and dreams, not supporting you and giving you everything. That's not what it's talking about. It says, it is a known fact that the older you get, the more you will identify with your friends. Everyone needs to feel accepted and that they belong. Having friends is an important part of that process. Who you associate with and call your friends says a lot about your character. They have sayings for that, like birds of a feather flock together, right? Because friends can exert the greatest amount of influence on each other, it's very important that you choose friends based on their character and not just their personality. But again, let's go back a minute. Until you learn the peaceful solution, would you have even considered that? No. There's grown adults that don't consider that. I teach classes today for child protective services, and a lot of the parents that come to me, they've been through very abusive relationships, and they have to relearn how to choose mates wisely, because the one they chose ended up, beating them half to death, or abusing their children sexually or otherwise. Okay? So they have to relearn this. They have to learn this for the first time when they come to the peaceful solution, and they're amazed that they're like, why was this never taught to me when I was growing up? Why wasn't this told to me? I could have avoided all those people that I got involved with and all these things that I got involved with had I known this from the beginning. Okay? It's a very real thing. It's very real. When you start learning the difference between character and personality and how to choose friends the right way, the friendship stages, but also, how to know whether someone has a positive character or negative character traits through observation, communication, and, watching what they do, not what they say. Because a lot of people say a lot of things about themselves, don't they? Oh, they'll tell you all kinds of wonderful things about themselves, especially when they're trying to win your friendship, when they're trying to win you over, It's like getting a job. When you go in for a job interview, you don't go in with your hair all messed up and you haven't brushed your hair in a week and you got holes in your pants and your breath stinks and, and go in there and say, I'd like to get the job. No, you go in there looking your best, right? And usually you got this big, long resume because you think it's going to impress your prospective employer, when really, I know I used to do hiring at a couple companies, and when I saw long resumes, I thought, why have you been to all these places? And when I asked them questions, when I would ask them, well, why'd you leave this place? Well, they weren't paying me enough, and I was a really great worker, they didn't want to pay me. And, well, why'd you leave that place? Well, there's just a lot of, people there that just didn't want to do their work, so I just left. Or they always came up with all these excuses, but I would hire the person that had a shorter resume, that hadn't been jumping around from job to job. But the point is, when you meet somebody, you want to make, when you want to win someone's friendship over in any relationship, you're always going to treat them really well when you first meet them. And remember, a positive character or a negative character oftentimes is hidden behind that fictitious, charming personality that they have, that they put on. It's a face people put on, just like when you're going for the job interview. Okay? But as soon as you get hired, so to speak, or as soon as that person decides to be your friend, or as soon as that person decides, they want to have some kind of relationship with you, and you get to know them for a while, what takes place? Not so, it's like the job. You get hired for the job, and you told your boss you'd be there, every day on time and this and that, but every day you're coming in late, you're complaining, you don't get paid enough, even though you agreed to work for the money they gave you. Now you're complaining, well, he's not paying me enough. Not even being thankful that we have a job to begin with, right? And next thing you know, you're going around poisoning all the other minds in the business or whatever, with your complaints. But that's how people, we generally, we start to treat people that way when we haven't been taught this positive moral character. The point is, we could never start the disrespect in a relationship. If we do and we don't stop it, if we don't realize what we're doing and stop it, eventually that relationship's going to dissolve. It's going to come to nothing. So it says, it's a known fact that the older you get, the more you will identify with your friends. Everyone needs to feel accepted. I know I read this. And that they belong. Having friends is an important part of that process. Who you associate with and call your friends says a lot about your character. Because friends can exert the greatest amount of influence on each other, it's important that you choose friends based on their character and not just their personality. Having friends, people to share your ups and downs with, to laugh with, and to cry with, helps to make life complete. It's like emotions. Think if you didn't have emotions, like joy or, anything like that. Would you think about how boring and dull life would be, and, your child comes home from school. I got an A on my report card. Great, son. Pass the salt. Like a robot, no joy, no laughter, no nothing, because everybody's, just no emotion. So emotions are great, right? Even though there's positive and negative emotions, and they're all necessary, and we just need to learn how to control them, as we'll learn coming up in another book. But having friends and people to share these things with, it makes your life complete. So friends are very important. You got to have friends on that journey that we're going on. So it says, read the description of the following people and then decide, based on the description, what some of their character traits are. And would you take that person on your trip? Why or why not? So let's look at Lin Yu. Okay, Lin Yu. Lin Yu's the captain of the cheerleading team. She's very outgoing and fun to be around. She's always the first one to volunteer to help with the school events. Every day after school, she picks up her sister from the elementary school down the block and walks her home. Last week, when Mrs. Pohl forgot her wallet in the school cafeteria, Lin Yu found it and turned it into lost and found. Mitch told her to open it, but Lin Yu said that would be invading the privacy of whomever the wallet belonged to. The other day, a bunch of her friends asked her to go to the movies, but Lin Yu said she couldn't make it because she had to study for midterms. So, what are some of Lin Yu's character traits that we see there? Lin Yu was responsible. She was honest, respectful, and steadfast. Okay? Remember, she didn't give in to that someone trying to influence her to take that money, right? Looking in the wallet to see what was in it. So she was honest and respectful and steadfast. Remember, she was responsible because she had to study for her midterms and she didn't go to the movies with her friends. Okay, so would you take Lin Yu on your trip? Yeah. Why? Because she has positive character, right? That's who you want to surround yourself with, people that have positive character. So let's look at Scott. You've known Scott for most of your life. You've been in the same classes since kindergarten. Scott has a great sense of humor, and whenever he's around, he would have everybody laughing. He often makes racist jokes and could imitate anybody, from the teachers to his classmates. He really likes imitating Henry, who's in special education classes and walks with a limp. He's always picking up someone's things and teasing that he will keep them, then eventually he gives them back. Yesterday, Scott agreed to meet at your house to finish a project you were working on. You waited and waited, but he never showed up. The next day, you asked Scott why he didn't come over, and he said that he started watching a movie and lost track of time. Then he blamed you for not calling and reminding him. Wow. Scott, man, great Scott. So, what are some of Scott's character traits? Well, Scott's disrespectful, he's unreliable, and he's irresponsible. So, would you take Scott on your trip? Only if you had negative character traits yourself would you want this guy along. This guy here, man, he needs some work, right? Remember, Scott, don't get upset with Scott. If he's your friend and he does this, okay? Don't get upset with Scott. Just know that Scott needs a little help, right? Scott needs some education in the peaceful solution. And I guarantee you, given time, Scott too could change, right? But for now, we're going to leave him, okay? We're going to leave him. We're not taking him in the suitcase. We might take some Scott tissue, but we're not taking Scott. Okay, so let's look at Beverly. Beverly is soft-spoken and loves art. She tries hard in school and does well on all her subjects. When she's frustrated, she always remains calm and level-headed. Yesterday in class, Mr. Frank thought she was the one talking, so he gave her 5 demerits. But Beverly didn't get upset. I asked her why she didn't just tell Mr. Frank that she wasn't the one talking, and she said that arguing wasn't going to help. So what are some of Beverly's character traits? Answer was she's patient, she maintained her self-control, and she was respectful. Okay? And that's really hard to do in those kind of situations right there. She didn't argue with the person that thought that she did something. She actually just went along with it because she thought, well, I don't want to argue with my teacher and disrespect my teacher, right? So would you take Beverly on your trip? Yeah. Positive. Why? Why would you take her? Again, positive character traits. Man, these are the kind of people you want to have around you, right? People that are like this. These are some great people. Okay, so how about Tim? Let's look on page 152. Let's talk about Tim. It says, Tim is a very serious guy. He rarely laughs. He says that most things just don't seem too funny to him. The other day when Scott was making fun of Henry, Tim told the group that it wasn't Henry's fault that he walked with a limp, and that if they wanted something funny to laugh at, they should rent a comedy. Then he walked off and sat down to eat his lunch. He asks permission every time he needs to touch or borrow something from someone else, and he returns it in great condition. When Billy asked Tim to help him cheat on the social studies exam, Tim told him no. Billy didn't talk to Tim for a week, but Tim didn't seem to mind. So, what are some of Tim's character traits? Well, we see that Tim was very respectful and he was very courageous. Okay? He stood up for, remember, he was being assertive too with that situation where that person was being made fun of. Okay? And he was very courageous because he stood up for what was right, even though everyone else wasn't. So would you take Tim on your trip? Yeah, take Tim on the trip. Okay, let's look at Peggy. Now, if things didn't go exactly as Peggy wanted, she would get pretty ticked off, and she made sure everybody knew it. You always had to be careful around Peggy because if you said something she didn't like, she would literally get in your face and tell you off. A couple of weeks ago, Peggy thought that Karen was talking about her, so Peggy pushed Karen against the wall and yelled at her. Karen was scared, but she tried not to show it. The guidance counselor heard about what had occurred, and Peggy got in big trouble. The next day, Peggy apologized to Karen, but everybody knew she had only apologized because the guidance counselor told her to. So what were some of Peggy's character traits? Yeah, I heard somebody say disrespectful. Yes. Rude and disrespectful. Yes. Would you take Peggy on your trip? Not unless you want to end up in jail, or have Peggy pushing you against the wall or something, right? Okay, so it says on page 153, maintaining a positive moral character and choosing friends that are positive are important parts of growing up. Now, okay, the people that were very positive, like Tim and Lin Yu and the others that we mentioned, the ones that were positive, they might not seem like the coolest people, right? But once you learn the peaceful solution, you would really look up to these people. You would think, man, these guys are, that girl was able to take that demerit and not complain to the teacher about it. Wow. She's really something. That's really something. Right? You would look up to them if you knew everything that we're learning here. You would look up to somebody like that. You would think they were cool. Cool-headed, level-headed. You would think, man, I'd like to be like that. So, but when you're in the mode of negative character and you haven't been taught the peaceful solution, you would want to take Peggy along, you know, and you would think that Scott's a really great guy, right? You would think, man, I like Scott, man, because he likes picking on people, and we can go to the mall together and we can make fun of people when they're walking by. Man, he's really cool. It's fun to do stuff like that. Yeah, it's fun to do stuff like that when you don't know, you know, the consequences that can come from doing those things. Okay? And there are real consequences that do come from doing that. Sometimes the person that you're picking on doesn't have self-control themselves. And they could end up doing something really, really bad to get even, right? It can turn into something really bad for both parties. So from time to time, remember to evaluate the things that are important to you and your friends. Friendships might start off positive, but if one or more of your friends neglect to guard their positive character and their influence to do something that could cause harm, then you must be ready to be a leader and stand for what you know is right. Tell them what they're doing is wrong and point out the consequences of their actions. Do you know how embarrassing that is? Have you ever had to do that? Have you ever had to point something out to somebody or tell them that they're wrong, remind them, you know, what they're doing is wrong? Have you ever had to do that? You've been in that? It makes you kind of nervous, you know. It makes you feel, you know, it's not a comfortable feeling to have to point it out to somebody, okay? But you have to do it. You have to do it because you want to keep them as a friend. You don't want them to get hurt. A friend looks out. Remember, they support their friends. They encourage that person to do the right thing. That's a true friend. And it's not always comfortable to have to do those things, but we have to do it if we truly care for that person. We have to do it. We have to be courageous. We have to be the one to stand up. And we should hope they would do it for us, right? Because sometimes we might go astray. Sometimes we might do the wrong thing. Sometimes we might not be making the right choice. I would want somebody to point it out to me. I want somebody to tell me, hey, you're wrong, so I can get back on the right track to a positive moral character, right? That's what we should want. That's what all parents should want for their children. They should want, you know, their children to be choosing these kind of friends, okay? And they do. That's what parents truly want. It's just that no one's teaching them, you know, what we're learning right now. Do not just go along with whatever your friends are doing just because they're your friends. Remember what we learned on page 70 about peer power, peer pressure, okay? And how, you know, it's not always easy, you know, to be different. Sometimes people are going to try to pull you into what they're doing. And you're going to feel kind of uncomfortable because everyone else is doing it. But you know what? That's your opportunity right there to put that being assertive into action and being courageous. I don't care if you have 100 friends and they all choose to do the wrong thing all at the same time. We still have to stand up and do the right thing and be a leader and be a positive role model to whoever those people are. We have to make the right choice even if no one else does. We have an obligation. Remember, we have an obligation to develop a moral character. We have an obligation to help our friends and show the right example to them and hope that they'll watch what you're doing and they'll consider what you're doing, and then they'll turn and they'll realize what they're doing wrong and they'll make the right decision. And if you have to walk away from your 100 friends, you might have to walk away. Okay? Hoping that they'll change eventually and you'll win your friends back. But you might have to walk away. I'm not going to make this seem like it's all flowery and, you know, you're never going to have. There's many, many people that have had to walk away from relationships, friendships, etc., because of the behavior of the person that they're befriended. It's a very real thing. And some of these people have never seen their friends ever again. Okay? But they made the right decision because it helped them to maintain their positive character. Okay, that's the important thing. We've got to maintain our positive character even if we lose every friend that we have. We still have to stay on that road. Okay? So it says, you are already aware of how a lack of self-control can cause harm to you and others. You must be determined to change those behaviors that do not promote true positive character and not give in to negative influences. Keep in mind that courage, determination, and compassion for others are only a few of the positive character traits that you will need for your journey, a journey that will include your friends, so be prepared. And remember, that compassion will come in handy too, because you want to be compassionate toward your friends too. You don't want to just say, you know, well, you made the wrong choice, so I'm going to get out of here. You're not my friend anymore. No, you got to you got to care about them. You got to care about what they need. You got to care about their growth and development too, right? So let's look at this. Finally, let's look. I only got a couple of minutes, but let's look at this article about a choice that some friends that made that will cost them their futures. This occurred right here in Abilene, Texas. It says they will face adult charges. 5 youths linked to the burning of Wiley Junior High have been indicted for arson as well as organized criminal activity. In addition to the high school, they've also been linked to several other fires. The 3 16-year-olds in the group have had their case transferred to adult court. If convicted on all counts, the boys could face 5 to 99 years in prison. Now, this was all the way back in 2002 that this took place, so I did a little digging to find out what occurred to these guys. And I found the article from 2003, and the 3 boys that had been their case transferred to adult court, one of them got 9 years, one of them got 5 years, and one of them got 8 years probation. And I read that one of the young ladies that testified at the case, she said the boys lit the school up because their classmates were very snobby. Snobby. In other words, high-minded, thought they were better than other people or whatever. Well, rather than burning the school down, it would have been really great if they could have got the peaceful solution where, you know, they could have learned how to deal with snobby people, and the snobs could have learned how to be more humble, right? We could have avoided this whole thing. But there was $1.5 million in damage done there in that case. Okay? $1.5 million. Wow. Right here in Abilene, Texas. So anyway, that's all the time I've got today. On page 153, we've covered that. So we're gonna leave off there. We'll be on 154 next time. And today is the date today. It's the 3rd today? 2nd? So our next class will be on the 6th? 6/6? Does that sound right? Today's the 2nd, so yeah, it'd be on the 6th. 6/6 at 5:30 p.m. So on Sunday at 5:30 p.m. we'll pick up here where we left off. You've been a great class today. Please keep tuning into the Peaceful Solution if you're watching abroad. And thank you very much. Have a great day.